agriculture and human consumption and services, such as sanitation. If we consider energy, many of our country continue to be overly reliant on fossil fuel-based electricity. And it's well known that the continued generation of this type of electricity will, I guess, accelerate climate change and further expose us to more severe and frequent drought events. Similarly, the Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan Assessment Report of last year estimated that only 32 of our rural communities and the rural people have access to electricity. This is a major contributing to deforestation and to land degradation, as rural communities are forced to rely on vegetation, on woodlands to cater for their energy needs. So we are really concerned as these interlinked issues contribute and affect drought more. But we also know that without electricity or access to electricity, our rural communities are even more vulnerable to drought, as they lack the means to diversify their livelihood. So, gentlemen and ladies, considering all these factors, Namibia is particularly pleased to see the focus on the food, water, and energy in Global Land Outlook report of our SADC, and for us to move forward and achieving success in mitigating the effect of desertification, land degradation, and the drought, we need to implement actions that simultaneously target improved food, water, and energy security. This should also be a central focus for the work of UNCCD and our own national efforts for better drought preparedness. Some of the practical measures we are implementing in this regard in Namibia include restoration of our degraded land. We have a plan of 45 million hectares that we have that are affected by the bush encroachment. We are in Namibia embarking upon introducing more climate resilient approaches to agriculture, such as drip irrigations, which lead to improved soil quality and reduce water use. Diversification of our water supply in Namibia through use of technologies like desalination, where we are desalinating seawater, but we are also improving the saline water in our inland and the breakwater for our people and our community and farmers. So those are the new innovations that we are embarking upon. So we are greater use of off-grid renewable energy. Namibia is one of a country in the region where we are blessed with resources when it comes to renewable energy, and at the national level, not only in Namibia but other countries also in the region, we are increasing our use of renewable energy. So we have some of this type of intervention being rolled out in the Great Green Wall initiatives in Sahel region, and we are also looking forward in the SADC region to embarking upon or to start a discussion similar or large-scale intervention under the Great Green Wall program for our region in SADC. In closing ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity once again to thank the Secretariat for the championing the development of these two important documents. Drought has been, will always be, critical issue for Namibia, but also for many countries in our region, and the one we have fought to have better addressed under the auspices of this convention. We are therefore pleased to see the regional drought or risk management mitigation strategy come to reality, and we encourage the region and the member states to continue pushing for improved focus on the issues of drought mitigation through this convention, but also through other UN conventions. I pledge that Namibia will ensure the implementation of this strategy, and we look forward to share lessons with our neighbors and with our counterparts in the region and the global community on drought preparedness and the response measures. So with those few words, Madam Chair, I'm very happy that we are here, and with those few words, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Timo from Namibia, for the powerful keynote address, which has looked at the situation analysis and context of drought in the SADC region, and also the impacts that come with drought in the region. But you have also highlighted the measures that your country is undertaking, and also thank you for highlighting that SADC has also welcomed the Great Green War Initiative. And finally, you have pledged support to implementation of the strategy, and I believe all the SADC countries also pledge full support to the implementation of this strategy, of course with support from the development partners. Thank you very much once again, Commissioner Timo. We have less than an hour left. May I invite the panelists to come forward. We have Deputy Director General from South Africa. May I please invite you in front. A delegate from Zambia, Ministry for Green Economy and Environment. Zambia. A distinguished delegate from Tanzania. The distinguished delegate from Tanzania. This is Zambia. A distinguished delegate from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. And distinguished delegate from the Africa Union Commission, Elvis. Louis, distinguished delegate from Angola. Thank you very much, our distinguished delegates. I believe we are missing Angola and Tanzania. The Director General from South Africa. You'll be the first one to break the ice. And I give you 2 minutes to respond to this question. What are the developmental challenges in your country in the face of drought, land issues as it relates to land management, water, and energy? Director General from Deputy Director General South Africa, you may also introduce yourself and give the name to the distinguished delegates. So what are the challenges in your country in the face of drought? Madam Deputy Director.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. My name is Motlharo Flora Mokgotlo. I always tell people that for some reason when I was born, my grandparents at the time deemed it fit that I am named after my dad's sister. And you can tell from my names that I am connected, they are connected to matters related to land. So my vernacular name, which is Motlharo, means a woman who tills the soil. My praise name is called Piladi, which means a woman who is very much alive. And obviously my English name is Flora. I listen throughout sessions here, they talk about fauna and flora, and when the minute they say flora, I raise my head, because I think they call it my name. Notwithstanding those Malanyana introductions, I grew up in the rural areas of the northern provinces of Limpopo. And I remember very clearly in the years 1981 to 1983, thereabouts, just over 10 years old, we were served with yellow mealie porridge. For those of you that come from Southern African region, you know that porridge is our staple food. And it is white in color, it is not yellow. And the reason it was yellow, it was because in the region we were experiencing one of the worst droughts to hit the agricultural sector. And therefore, for governments to meet up to the food and livelihoods of populations, they had to fortify the mealie pap so that it can be a little bit more dense and a little bit more nutritious, because we were experiencing food shortages. Even at the time, we were served with bags and bags of tea. It's one of our trademark trees in South Africa called rooibos tree, as you would know. It is sold globally as a herbal tea. It is an indigenous tea that is grown in South Africa that has got lots of health benefits because it's got antioxidants. For us, it's normal tea, but when you go overseas, it is sold as a premium health tea. And as I grew up in a household with my grandmother and my grandfather raising myself and my cousins. We were a very big family. My father, having had 6 sisters and being the only boy, meant that all his sisters' children then lived with us in the household. And all we knew about survival and livelihoods was about tilling the soil, growing crops, herding cattle and sheep, depending on the land. And therefore, we grew up, we knew during school holidays that we're gonna have to work hard. But my grandmother and my grandfather were very generous people, because at the opening of schools, we knew that we will get new clothes, we will get new shoes, and those school requirements. But my interest for the environment grew greatly in that respect. Why I'm giving you this is I take it that I'm in this position as a Deputy Director General for Environment, for Forestry, in the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, responsible for biodiversity and the environment, having spent almost half of my career life, which is more than 25 years in this sector. Now, you can imagine that matters related to drought affect people at the lowest level greatly, especially women and young people. In my country, men migrate to the urban areas to seek for employment. and the mothers and the children remain at home to make livelihoods from the land. My own country, South Africa, is considered one of the 30th driest places in the globe, receiving just over 850 millimeters of rain per annum. We also depend quite a lot on precipitation from the mountains of Lesotho and our major economic hub, Gauteng province, depend largely on water schemes from Lesotho into South Africa. And that already tells you a story around a country that is very prone to drought. But you will also know that South Africa is also one of the economic hub of the region for obvious reasons, that we've got sophisticated supply chain management systems. We also rely heavily on agriculture and the mining sector. And therefore, should South Africa run dry, or should the region run dry, this will mean that the whole region will then be affected negatively. And therefore, as a country, we do have a number of strategies that are responding to drought. We do have a drought management framework that is in place that has identified the need for institutional governance mechanisms, the need for data management systems and early warning systems, the need for capacity building, and the need for funding. So those are the major thrusts of our drought management framework. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Authorities are responsible for coordinating matters related to disaster risk response. And they've been very instrumental in the recent floods that have ravaged.
Madam Deputy Director, please wind up.
Yes. And therefore, matters related to droughts in my country, we have very bottom-up approaches where we get data and information from community level. We have research institutions such as the Water Research Commission, Agriculture Research Commission, the CSIR, Scientific Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and also we have the South African Weather Services that is able to then issue those warning systems in relation to drought. And therefore, coming to where we are in respect of what I would recommend needs to be done. I think at the level of SADC, we have very good institutional governance mechanisms in the institution of SADC, and therefore we have to ensure that those robust data management systems are in place so that we can have better predictability. We can also develop drought resilience strategies that are custom fit for our respective countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Director, for highlighting the developmental challenges in your country, and you also gone beyond to give us the interventions and measures that your country is undertaking. Zambia, what can be done to foster collaboration between governments, agencies, donor community, and interested parties in formulating a coordinated response to the challenges faced and opportunities presented by land, water, and energy nexus in the SADC? What can be done to foster collaboration? Zambia, I give you 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, panelists. Good morning, all in attendance. My name is Kalengo Mumba from the Office of the Vice President, Department of Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit. I'm the Regional Coordinator for the Eastern region of Zambia, spanning from basically the Luangwa River, those of you who might be aware of the geographic area, all the way to Malawi border. Most of our region, as we all are aware, or as we all may be aware, is characterized by drought events that are becoming more and more frequent. Drought, we all know, impacts are manifested in many different ways, mainly namely declining availability of water resources, declining crop yields, and crop failure as a result of declining availability of water, increased mortality of animals, as well as increased human-animal conflict. This has led to food insecurity in our region and has caused a decline generally in economic activity. What we need to do going forward is we need to implement strategies that ensure food, water, and energy security. We need to implement programs that are coordinated, that focus on restoration of degraded lands, climate resilient agriculture, greater use of renewable energy would be key as well. It would be recommended for the entire region to conduct coordinated, in-depth vulnerability and needs assessment, and consequently implement coordinated social safety programs, looking at best practices, coordinated risk financing mechanisms, and coordinated contingency planning. As SADC, what can we do, or how can we ensure that we implement these programs in a coordinated manner? We need to ensure that we strengthen information sharing, strengthen our shared common understanding, capacity building, resource mobilization, and integration of localizing of best practices, including research and development. I submit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Zambia, for highlighting steps that the SADC can enhance as we collaborate in the process. May I now invite Professor Matondi, Zimbabwe, to highlight to us the necessary tools that can drive sustainable land management, drought in the region. Professor Matondi, what are the necessary tools that can drive sustainable land management and drought management in the SADC region? Professor, you have the floor for 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be at this convention, and also for the SADC Secretariat for hosting us on this side event. My name is Professor Matondi. I'm the National Coordinator and Chief Director in the Ministry of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry. And in order to answer the question that you have raised around what are the necessary tools that are required for addressing land degradation and drought, there are several instruments, for instance, that we use in Zimbabwe, being financial instruments, technological instruments and interventions. We also use the legislative instruments in order to build traction in addressing land degradation and drought. And in our context, we have enhanced the program, which is in the Office of the Vice President, through which has the Cabinet Committee on Enhanced Productivity. And there are 5 or 6 presidential priorities to address land degradation and drought. And this includes addressing issues to do with land tenure, secondly, issues to do with water resources mobilization, issues to do with agriculture, food security, and also other land uses, and matters to do with the energy resources. So I would say that largely the country has achieved the first objective around addressing land tenure through a process of land and agrarian reforms that is seen deconcentration of a large population from communal areas to much more productive areas. And when we are talking about land size deconcentration, we now know that probably around 12 million hectares of real land has been redistributed to smallholder farmers, which has contributed significantly to improving equity, but without equality. So issues of equality are now on the agenda in terms of how we can build several value chains in utilizing water resources. And if you might well know, Zimbabwe is probably one of the largest dammed countries in Africa. We've got about 12,000 dams, and much of that water resources is currently inaccessible to drive the agricultural sector. And it's a matter that is of priority to government. When it comes to agriculture and food security, at any point in time, we used to have about 3 million households being food vulnerable. And in the last few years, we have addressed that particular challenge through several policy instruments. And one of them includes the biofortification of maize, and also a process of developing a traditional grains policy that contributes to demazing and debreading the nation. So what in essence is mean we are providing alternative sources of carbohydrates of food for the population, especially during the lean drought seasons, which have become much more or less. And based on the outcomes of what we have implemented in the last few years, we have been able, fortunately, to offload some of our food to some of our neighboring countries in Botswana, in Mozambique, because of we have achieved the food surplus. But the question is, what are the mechanisms of sustaining those gains? That is the challenge that we face, given that probably Zimbabwe is the second most vulnerable country in terms of climate crisis, and we are not holding any breath that in 5 years or by 2030 we'll be able to achieve the same food security that we have experienced. Then in terms of forestry, for instance, land degradation and forestry degradation, we lose about 262,000 hectares of land on an annual basis. And our target is essentially to halve that in the next 5 years through specific mechanisms of forest development programs, and also ensuring the maintenance of current forests and so forth. So those are some of the specific tools that we are using. And of course, we are very astute to issues to do with environmental impact assessment. We have got our colleagues here from the Environmental Management Agency. So it's a specific policy tool and legislative tool that we use to address challenges of land degradation, and builds into our drought mitigation plans and so on. So I'm happy that this framework is being launched at this convention, and I want to thank the Secretariat for that particular effort, and we are here to support that initiative. So I submit to Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Professor. I now invite the Africa Union Commission to highlight the trends and lessons that can be learned from within the region and experiences from other regions as well, designed to remove or to reverse the worrisome trends of drought, land degradation, and desertification. Elvis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And before I go on, let me first of all congratulate the SADC region, the SADC Secretariat, and the partnership for the development of and launching of this strategy. That is very good. Let me also recognize my director and my colleague, Mr. Nyambe and Ms. Leah, who are here to make sure that I'm saying the right things. You, Madam Moderator, you are asking me about what experiences that we can share from the other regions. The first thing I have to say is that we all have similar challenges, and these challenges have similar impacts on both man and nature. And another observation is that there is no part of the continent that people are just sitting and waiting for things to happen. a lot is being done, especially at our local communities, to combat these extreme weather conditions, both in the Sahel, the Sahara, and the Southern Africa or SADC region. So there is a lot of good lessons that can be learned from these similarities. And there is a lot that can be shared among these regions. But the first another observation is that there have been a huge gap between these regions. They have not been talking to each other. The Sahara have not been talking that much with the Sahel, and the Sahel has not been talking that much with the SADC region, as far as this sector is concerned. And it's understandably so, because the issues of desertification, land degradation, for a very long time were not priority areas, both at the national, at the regional level. And when you look at the constitutions of our governance structure, there was this silo system. There is this silo system that is embedded in our systems. That is why you can get the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Lands, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Forestry, the Ministry of Wildlife, Agriculture. And all of these ministries that are doing the same thing, they are not still talking to each other as much as they had to. And another observation that we should also take note of is also the discrepancy or the gap existing between the actors at the grassroots level. There's a huge gap between the farmers, the graziers, the hunters, the fishermen. And the strange thing is that most of these things are done by the same people, but the sectors are still very much on a silo system, so they are not talking to each other. And at the international level, we have also realized the huge gap that had existed between, let me just use the 3 Rio Conventions, UNFCCC, climate change, biodiversity, and desertification. These conventions that come from the same family also have not been talking to each other for a very long time. I don't know whether it has improved now. But the good thing is, and this is a very good thing, with the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, with the current situation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, with climate change, all these borders are now being very, very finite. They are no longer these borders because everybody was affected similarly. So if you ask me what are the best practices that we can share from the whole of the continent and beyond, I'm going to use the experience from the Great Green Wall Initiative that the African Union launched in 2007. And the Great Green Wall Initiative, as you know, is a Pan-African sustainable land management and restoration initiative of the heads of state of the continent. So, some of the lessons that I'm going to share, and the first, because we just launched a strategy today, the first thing I'm going to say is that strategies don't implement themselves. We have to implement them. There is a tendency of financing strategies and don't financing their dissemination, don't financing their domestication, and don't financing and telling them how we can leverage this strategy. And the funding ends at the level of the production of the strategy. That is very detrimental. Another lesson that we can look at from the Great Green Wall is nexuses are extremely important. We have to be nexuses at all levels, at the political level, at the thematic level, at all levels of implementation of such strategies. And that is what we are doing within the framework of the implementation of the Great Green Wall. The other lesson that we can share is the need for all to be need-based. If we produce strategies that does not talk into the needs of our local population, if we produce strategies that does not talk to the priority of our governments, of our policy makers, they are not going to fly. They will only be very good academic work. So it needs to be needs-based. And when you look at the experience from the Great Green Wall.
Elvis, I will
Yes.
request you to wind up.
Yes, I'm rounding up. When I look at the experience from the Great Green Wall, you will realize how much can be done when strategies, when programs are developed based on the needs and the priorities of our member states. And so, to conclude, within the Africa Union Commission, we've realized that, and one big step that the Commission took was the upgrades of the former environment division to the Directorate for Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy to give more and more power, in inverted commas, to the environment sector and to ensure that we are empowered to tackle some of the problems and also the opportunities that exist here today, that we've been talking with today. So thank you very much, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Elvis, for sharing experiences around the main Africa region and how we can make sure that land management is enhanced in the region, and also how the sub-regions can talk to each other. Thank you very much, Elvis. At this point, allow me to close this sub-session and invite the next panelists. If we have time at the end, then we can interact with the audience. Once again, let's give a round of applause to the Africa Union, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. I will now invite the Global Environment Facility CEO, the Green Climate Fund, and the European Union. The Jeff, are we here? Is the Jeff here? The GCF, the European Union. If they are not here, then allow me to invite our chief from Zambia to give a perspective from local leadership. The chief from Zambia. Distinguished delegates to this side event for SADC, you are also requested to sign up to the registration sheet that is supposed to be circulating on our tables. And may I request the Secretariat to make sure that everybody has signed up, that we have attended this session. Welcome, Your Excellency, to this session. You are the only panelist here, but the region and also the delegates attending this side event where we are launching the strategy on drought and also the outlook for the region are interested to hear the experiences from local leadership. So Zambia, you have the floor.
I thank you so much, the moderator, for according me this opportunity to address this August Assembly here. I am His Royal Highness Chief Chongo from Zambia, a member of the House of Chiefs in Zambia, under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. First and foremost, I would like to say, indeed, us as their Royal Highnesses have been directly affected by the effects of climate change. Why? It's because we are found in the rural parts of our countries. Most members of the rural parts of our countries are farmers, keeping animals as well as growing a variety of crops. And some of them still rely on gathering fruits from the forests, as well as depending on fish from the various rivers and animals from the various game reserves. I am a chief coming from the southern part of Zambia, which is the most hit region in Zambia by the effects of drought. The impact of drought on the local communities in Zambia can be outlined as follows. First and foremost, because of the drought that has persistently hit our country, most of our water bodies are actually drying up. And the drying up of these water bodies in our rural communities has affected our livelihood negatively. Why are we saying so? Most of our animals have to move long distances to access water. And our rural communities, where some rural communities do not have handy pumps or boreholes, they still depend on natural bodies of waters to collect their water. Hunger in affected areas. Since most of our people depend on the rains to plant their crops, so if there is no enough rain in that particular year, for example, the 2019-2020 farming season was a disaster. We had very little rainfall. The government had to come in to provide relief food. So those are some of the effects of drought in our local communities. The loss of income. People do not have enough income because they can't do their farming well. They can't keep their animals well. Pastures are drying up, and as I have already alluded to, the drying up of water bodies where most of our animals find the water to drink. This also has brought another problem of in the indiscriminate cutting down of trees. People who previously depended on agriculture, some of them have resorted to charcoal burning. So they have started indiscriminately cutting down trees to go and sell in the nearest urban areas, selling charcoal and selling firewood. So this is another new trend that is coming up, which shall really add on to the adverse effects of the climate change. In some areas also, people have resorted to poaching, indiscriminate killing of wild animals, which previously we were just hunting those animals for food, but because of this climate change and its effects, people have now resorted to hunting animals for a livelihood, meaning they are now killing animals in large numbers. That is another problem that is actually coming up. And also the depleting of fish from the rivers that can still survive. people are now indiscriminately fishing these rivers using some very bad methods of fishing where they cannot discriminate between the older fish and the young fish, so they're just getting everything from the rivers. All this has come because of the drought that has persisted, and people are changing their livelihood means. The other impact that has actually come as a result of drought, the moving of people migrating from one region to the other, especially the southern province of Zambia, where I'm coming from, and the other regions which are badly hit like Western Province. People have started moving together with their livestock, going to other regions where they feel there's still some part of, there's still rain. The rainfall pattern is still okay in those regions. This eventually will lead to some chiefdoms losing most of their populations, going to other chiefdoms. We are happy the government has come up with a lot of alternatives. They call us for meetings, trying to teach us on how we can, how we can mitigate these effects. The government of Zambia has come up with a new ministry, the Green Economy Ministry. It wasn't there all along, but it has now just been put last year, meaning they are resolved to seeing that we mitigate the impacts of this drought. We had the National Indaba on Forest, I think this year in March in Zambia, the National Indaba on Forest, where some of us, the Royal Highnesses, attended. And I'm assuring this August House that really we are trying our level-based, even traditional leaders, to answer to these challenges that have just come on our regions. Through this conference and other climate change related conventions, I strongly hope and believe that we shall together find a sustainable ways of mitigating the impact of drought in our respective regions. We should at all times remember that we all share the same sky. We share the same sky. In one of Zambia's major local languages, which is Tonga, we have a saying which goes, Masi Masi Julu Nderimwi. That's a Tonga proverb. Masi Masi Julu Nderimwi. It means different regions but one sky. We share the same sky. Masi Masi Julu Nderimwi. It's an old proverb, meaning our ancestors knew that we share the same sky. And now, climate change has shown us that we are sharing the same sky. What affects Zimbabwe, what affects South Africa, will affect Zambia. If we do not take care of our environment in Zambia, it shall still trickle down to other countries because we share the same sky. With these few words, Madam Chairperson, I thank you for according me this opportunity to address this August Assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Highness, for the insightful presentation and also quite moving. You have highlighted the challenges that the southern Zambia is facing, and it's interesting the way you also highlighted about the issue of migration. Your subjects are migrating from your area to other areas, and that is worrying. A chief with no people is no longer a chief, and sometimes you also don't know how your subjects will be treated where they are going. So yeah, it is a tough challenge that we are facing, drought. Thank you very much for your statement.
Thank you.
We really appreciate.
Most welcome.
Colleagues, time is not on our side. We have 10 minutes left. And allow me to skip the interactive session. Secretariat? question and answer, so that we go into the ceremonial handover of the Global Land Outlook and the drought strategy. So the documents will be handed over to the SADC by the UNCCD. Miriam, I believe you're still here. I also saw Louise at one point. UNCCD Secretariat. Okay, the UNCCD, they just rushed out for a few minutes. So maybe we can have quickly 2 observations from the floor, from the presentations that we have had this morning. I open the floor for observations, for interventions or questions. And please identify yourself. My sister.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you to all the panelists.
Please speak closer to the mic so that we can hear you audibly.
In the implementation of the strategy, I believe that capacity building is one of the issues that is at the core, of the implementation. I also believe that policy makers, decision makers at different levels are also at the core and of the effective implementation of the strategy in the different SADC countries. I say this because they hold the purse when it comes to resource allocation, in particular to rural communities that are mostly affected by the drought. Now, my question is, is there any, concerted effort that is being made to build or to enhance the capacity of policymakers, of decision makers in terms of the effects, of drought on the communities, so that the resource allocation does not only end at the high level of the implementation, but goes down to the rural communities who are the ones that are most affected, by drought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May you please once again identify yourself?
Sorry, my name is Lynn Kota. I am from Eswatini.
Thank you very much, Eswatini. The Africa Union Commission.
Thank you, ma'am. I would want to take this opportunity to commend the presenters. And one area that I wanted to stress is the fact that there's need to strengthen early warning system, because to be able to mitigate climate changes, to be able to mitigate drought, it's important that people are prepared way before the before the drought strikes. So early warning system is very important, and from the African Union point of view, we have just established the multi-hazard early warning system, which is going to be linked to the regional economic communities, and that's actually quite key. And in addition to that, of course, is the issue of meteorology, because those early warning systems cannot operate without meteorology. So it's important that we also strengthen our Met services, including in terms of investments. I submit.
Thank you very much, the Africa Union Commission, for that intervention. There is a question from Eswatini. Is there capacity building for policymakers to ensure that we reach out to the grassroots levels, in brief? May one of the panelists address that briefly, and then we'll go into the handover ceremony. South Africa, Flora.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I would submit that we need to move away from capacity building to capability building. Because with capacity building, it means that you build capacity with the same people and yet the systems don't necessarily change. But when you focus on capability building, you therefore will focus on institutions, on people, on systems and processes. And therefore, I would submit that there is a need to broaden the work that we are doing on capacity building to even building capability, so that if I'm gone from the institution tomorrow, there's someone who's able to take the work forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Flora, for that intervention, providing feedback to Eswatini question. Thank you very much. Okay, we have another request. We have 5 minutes left. May I please request that you are very brief. Identify yourself and identify yourself. Here and then that side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mr. Faka from the Secretariat of OACPS, African, Caribbean, Pacific, and State. Yes, I would like really to come in about the capacity for strengthening the decision makers on the strategy how to reach the community. The Secretariat have developed a program what we call Intra-ACP Climate Services and a Related Application, CLIMSA in short. In that program, we are intending really to reach the decision makers, to let them know the benefit of using climate information for socio-economic benefit and also policy development. So we are expecting under the program we are leading, where all the OACPS regions are members, SADC, ECAS, Central Africa, West Africa, and the Indian Ocean are going to benefit for that capacity building program. So this is really to help you to know that our decision makers are really aware for the importance that there isn't. They pay attention for making funds available to build their own capacity at the rural area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allow me to curtail this discussion. We will continue with the discussions after the handover ceremony because the UNCCD have to be elsewhere in a few moments. So we will have a handover ceremony where the UNCCD will present the two documents, the Global Land Outlook for the SADC and the Drought Strategy to the SADC.
Thank you, colleagues. Can we allow the SADC, the CCD to present the documents to the SADC chair, represented by Malawi, and then we can have those who have cameras to take the photos for the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say the Global Land Outlook is not public, is not printed. We have published it. It is in our website. I really encourage you. I mean, this was done for you. It is your regional report of the Global Land Outlook. There's a lot of information there that you can utilize in policy making, in decision making, in project development. And it is our hope as well that this will help, this will be a small contribution towards realizing the promise and the dream of the SADC region to have your own Great Green Wall project. So I will now proceed to hand just one of the documents to you.
Malawi was requesting for the floor earlier on. We can continue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. My name is Ted Kamoto. I'm the national focal point for Malawi. I have an observation that I would want to share, and this is to do with the developers of the strategy, whether there was an attempt to look at indigenous knowledge as far as drought is concerned. I know that these days we all want everything to be science-based, but certainly local communities out there, they too have got their own understanding of drought. And if you chat with them, they always give you an idea as to how drought keeps on taking place in terms of the sequences, in terms of the years and the like. So I don't know whether there was that deliberate attempt to do that. Thank you.
May you please repeat and come closer to the mic?
I think I'm close enough to the mic, unless my
Maybe
mic,
it's the system.
unless the mic is not good enough. Otherwise, I'll end up swallowing it. Can you hear me now?
It's the system. It's okay.
It's okay. So I should repeat the question? Okay, so what I was saying is, when you chat with communities out there, they have got their own understanding of a drought and the sequences of drought based on their local areas. So what I wanted to find out is whether there was a deliberate attempt to include such information in the design of the strategy. Because certainly communities do have their own understanding of drought and how it frequently happens in their area, and even in terms of their responses. So that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malawi, for that question. And please also prepare for closing remarks as we come towards the end of this side event. May I invite the SADC to respond to the questions that we have heard from the floor. SADC. Sibongile.
Thank you, Chair. The development of this strategy was a consultative process with member states and partners and organizations and CSOs. So IUCN that was assisting us with the process can also further elaborate on this point, but it was a highly consulted process with partners, and we are hoping that considerations of indigenous knowledge systems were well considered into the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the SADC Secretariat and Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I also would like to thank you very much for this session, especially to our presenters from the SADC region. We have shared a lot of insights this morning. We have seen how drought affects people at grassroots level, especially women and girls. We have looked at how we should be able to strengthen collaboration and also enhance robust information sharing at national level for us to ensure that land management activities are done effectively. We have also seen that tools exist for for sustainable land management, for financial, policy, legislative, as well as planning tools. In the region, at Africa level, we have our own initiative, the Great Green Wall Initiative, which also the SADC region has welcomed. And it presents good lessons. However, the sub-regions need to talk to each other. We have also seen, we have also heard that mobilization of finances is key to implementation of the drought strategy. We need to look at the interlinkages, the nexus between water, land, environment, energy, and many more interlinkages that we need to look into as we are addressing drought. The SADC region has to set priorities based on needs. And we heard a very powerful plea from the Royal Highness, the chief from Zambia, on the status of drought, how drought is impacting on the livelihoods of the people in his area in southern Zambia, including also impact on animals and the migration of people from the southern Zambia to areas where they think they will have a better livelihood options, and many more things that we have shared this morning. Allow me to curtail this event there and hand over to the SADC Secretariat to facilitate the closing ceremony. So I'll invite Malawi to come and present the closing speech. And after that, we will have a group photograph, and then we can have tea. Sibongile.
Once again, good morning, colleagues. I think from Malawi, what we can say is that we are very happy that finally SADC has a strategy on drought. A drought is the most, I can say, difficult thing to predict. And most often, it hits countries when they are not ready, and it becomes a disaster. But now with the coming up of this strategy, which I'm sure it addresses issues of early warning, listening from what the presentations that have taken place this morning were able to talk about. So this strategy gives us an opportunity for us to be able to prepare for this unforeseen circumstance. And I'm hoping that countries in the region will not just have this strategy and put it in the shelf, but they will use this strategy to design programs of risk management in their countries so that we are able to minimize the impacts of drought to our respective communities. Let me thank the developers of the strategy for a job well done, and even the financiers too, the Korean government, the secretariat, the UNCCD secretariat, and all those that have been involved in the development of this strategy, to say thank you. The people of SADC really are very grateful for this product. And thank you, colleagues, for taking part in this launch. But like I said, having a strategy is nothing. Implementing it is something else. So let me ask member states within the SADC to make sure that we make good use of this strategy so that we are able to minimize the risks and address the negative impacts that come along with drought. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Let's all come for a group photograph. We'll have the panelists in front and everybody else behind the group photograph. Let's do it here quickly so that we go to the 10 o'clock meetings.